Well, hello and welcome to the Mindset Mentor. I'm Tania Kolar, helping you cultivate a life you love because you deserve it. And so remember that your mindset truly is like a muscle and it needs to be strengthened and conditioned. And this is your mindset workout. And all parents, you're going to love today's show. We're going to focus on super conscious parenting, which can be extremely helpful in, allowing your children to thrive, but also extremely helpful in helping you feel better about, the whole situation and maybe not being triggered as much as you have been in the world of parenting. I think every parent knows what that feels like. It's one of the toughest jobs on the planet, but somebody's got to do it. And so if there's any way that we can do it even better, I think it's phenomenal. So what I'd like to do is welcome my guest today. She is a certified parent educator. She's also an author and a mom. So let's say hello to Dorothy Knight. Dorothy, it's an absolute pleasure having you here today.
Thank you. I'm so stoked to be here to chat with you.
Well, it's such a wonderful topic, of course, right? There is no manual on, how to be a parent, right? And it is such a tough job. Oh, my goodness. And of course, people are left feeling, in many cases, am I doing it right? Am I a good enough parent or am I a bad parent? And there's a lot of stress on so many levels. And of course, the pressure of wanting to ensure that your child, you give them everything and provide them with opportunity and, teach them, guide them. But there has to be that fine line of, maybe when is too much or when is not enough, right? So I'd love to talk about your experience. But before we delve into that, I really want to get your definition of what is super conscious parenting for those who have actually never even heard of it.
Yeah, so I made it up. It's my term. And it's because there is totally a category and thing called conscious parenting. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful genre. It's an amazing way to parent your children. So conscious parenting is just being in a place and a space of such inner awareness. So our own self-awareness and the awareness of the present moment as it's unfolding. And this happens all the time as we're parenting. So super conscious parenting is like stepping it up a notch where we have done enough of our own work, our own inner healing, our own inner child healing, our shadow work, that we are at a completely different level of awareness. So now that puts us in a space where as a parent, even as a human being, we're no longer in a state of reaction. We're in a state of response. And we're always responding in every moment as it's unfolding. And that's truly powerful. And it's very empowering because it puts us in the driver's seat of every situation. And we know our triggers. We know how to transcend those triggers because we are so self-aware, so super conscious, and it totally shifts the paradigm. It shifts our day-to-day experience and it shifts our reality completely.
I love that. And, it sounds amazing, obviously, right? But I think for somebody who is very unconsciously parenting, how does somebody get to the place of now being that super conscious parent? So let's actually start with you. And if you could take us back and, your journey, you were in the corporate world and then you decided to sort of leave that behind to be a stay-at-home mom. So what was that experience like for you in making that decision?
It was really hard. It was really hard. And it's totally shattering all of the social structures and conditioning that we are so brainwashed almost to follow that beaten path. And truly the most profound breakthroughs that we have and growth is when we step off that path. And that's like being a trailblazer. We're all here to be trailblazers. So deciding, number one, to become a parent while having a thriving career was a huge decision. And I know so many women go through this, and that's why maybe so many of us are starting families later in life because we put the career first. And ideally, as we experience, there's never really the perfect time to have children. Like once you have them, things are going to totally flip around, shift around, move upside down, and your whole life changes completely. So I experienced that with my own kids, but it was such a blessing in disguise. So being on maternity leave with my first child, my daughter, it was that moment where I got to just be with myself. And suddenly I had all this time back, even though I was taking care of a little one. But the other parts of the day, it was like, wow, I can revisit all of these hobbies, all of these passions that I loved to do before I got into this corporate thing. And I realized that I wasn't really fulfilled in my jobs. Even though I was successful, even though I was climbing up that corporate ladder, getting the accolades, getting the promotions, there was always this part of me that was missing. So it was during this time that I became a stay-at-home mom that I got to dive into things that I love, like yoga and well-being and personal training. And I got to start dabbling into those things. And then I realized, shit, I need to figure out how I can make money doing what I love. So I got into the whole ikigai, finding my ikigai, like what's my sweet spot? So, and again, it wasn't like, boom, there it is. I got it all figured out. No, it was such a wonderful experience and journey. It was like truly the journey that was just beginning. And it was all happening while you're in this like raw, vulnerable state where your body is completely changed. You're not sleeping, you're tired, but yet you're so inspired to do something greater and maybe to retrieve these aspects of ourselves that were so long forgotten. So I truly believe that when we give birth to our children, it's like a rebirth for ourselves. So we maybe restore aspects of ourselves that were so long forgotten, or maybe we even suppressed since childhood. And children are such great examples of reclaiming our inner child. They're some of the greatest teachers we'll ever have.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It's a beautiful opportunity to really know yourself on such a deep level, and sometimes you need that shakeup in all areas to really start to reconnect with the authentic self, and to reconnect with the dreams, the desires, your wants, or simply to just sometimes recognize that what it is that you're doing is not fulfilling in a way that is really long standing, right? It may just be superficially fulfilling, but not truly soul fulfilling. And so this is going to be a great conversation where we can really get deep into, understanding the self. I think self-awareness, of course, makes life much better on every single level, and having that mindfulness. So let's talk about some of the ways for you that, let's say, so through your journey, you discovered a lot, but then now having your first child, what was that actually like? And, through the journey, were you still continuing to discover yourself on a different level, or did you immediately have this sort of new awareness coming into being a new mom?
No, it's like what I call the duality, the dualistic nature that all of us have to experience, because that's what being in this earthly plane is all about. That's what Earth School is all about. We're constantly trying to find that balance and that middle path. And that's why we get to do this tango, this dualistic dance of polarity, so that we recognize what that might look like. And that's called alignment. So we traverse back and forth. So I had these moments, these breakthroughs of, wow, like there's something more. I need to do something more with my life that's more fulfilling on all-encompassing way. But at the same time, we're still so conditioned that it's scary to do that. It's terrifying to leave what you've known, what paid the bills, what was socially deemed as success, to redefine what success is entirely for you. So I didn't quite just, leave everything behind. Like I still did part-time jobs where I was still doing some aspect of, we'll call it corporate work. But then I found myself in this loop, right? These karmic cycles of repetition. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm repeating a pattern here. I'm not really liking what I'm doing. Why am I doing this job? I can do better. I can do better. I deserve better. I am worthy and deserving of more. And that is such a way to flip the script, because so many women don't go for it, right? We don't believe that we're worthy and deserving. And this has everything to do on an energetic level about our belief systems, about love, about abundance, and what we are conditioned to believe. And this starts from early childhood and even through our ancestral lineage, what we carry on a cellular level. So it's really important to pay attention to how you respond to things. That's why I said we want to be responsive and not reactive. When we react, that's the trigger, right? That's the teacher. That's the perfect moment, the perfect opportunity to go within and reassess and go deeper and go deeper and go deeper and be like, what am I still doing here? Like, why am I repeating this? What is the blessing within the lesson? How can I transcend this? So yeah, even with my daughter, I mean, being a mom, when you start off, it can feel incredibly isolating because essentially your world becomes the baby's world. You're on the baby's schedule and you feel this great loss of autonomy. And I believe there's like, what do we call it? The fourth trimester, where moms, like, you go through like an identity crisis, right? Because you had this life, especially if you had your first child. When you have the other ones, maybe it's a little bit different, but you grieve. You absolutely grieve for your life. You grieve for the time that you had with your partner, which is completely different now too. The whole dynamics of the relationships changes. The relationship with yourself changes and your body, because it's also like a duality thing where you're like, wow, I created a human being. I birthed this beautiful being. And then we're also so harsh and we look at ourselves and go, oh my God, my stretch marks. Oh my God, my boobs are drooping down now. Like, what's happening to me, right? So we go through this whole plethora of emotions. It's such an emotional time too. But I think it's just so beautiful we shift back into this softer, more divine, feminine energy. And for some, it just continues on throughout motherhood. For some, it's just a short-lived thing, and we kind of revisit it because then we come back into these more action, goal, success-oriented energies, which are very masculine. And it's sad because essentially we're all both. Both exist in all of us. So yeah, it was a lovely thing with having my first child. I'm going to be honest. It was so amazing to fully have all this time with her, but then missing all of these aspects of my life. And how could I ever have all of it again? And that was the whole journey to where I am today, is figuring out that, wow, I can have it all, even though I'm a mom.
That's a great question, because I think a lot of people think that they have to sacrifice, like they really truly have to sacrifice their needs and their wants in their life, to have, to be a great mom, to be that superhuman mom, and, get everything done and do everything right. And then, along the way, you definitely start to lose, bits and pieces of yourself. And if you continually do that over time, you can get to a place where you really don't even recognize yourself anymore. And it just doesn't feel right. Life doesn't feel right. And so I think it really is so important to get to that space of self-awareness. And, it's interesting because, as you're talking a little bit earlier, I was imagining that, as being a parent, if you're a parent, that you would really start to understand some of your triggers right through your children. And I would also imagine that any of our, insecurities, any of our triggers are magnified exponentially, the moment you become a parent, because there's so many opportunities, that you're going to be triggered because you're responsible for your children at every moment, 24/7. Even those moments where you're absolutely exhausted, you still have some work to do, right? Being a parent, your child needs your attention, and that attention could be at any time. And so I would really truly imagine that, it really does bring to light a lot of what is going on inside, right? I remember Wayne Dyer used to always say, when you squeeze an orange, you get what's inside, right? So if you're angry, it's, more of that anger is going to come out. If you're loving, more of that love is going to come out. And we can be angry or loving at any given moment, constantly shifting, right? But I think it's really important to really become attuned to those moments and to see how we can better navigate the situation so that we can now start to feel a little better. So I want to talk a little bit about the difference between what super conscious parenting is versus being a helicopter parent. So we're going to take a break here on the Mindset Mentor on Sauga 960 AM. I'm your host, Tania Kolar, and we will be back with Dorothy Knight, who is a certified parent educator, helping us understand what super conscious parenting is and really truly helping our children thrive. Stay tuned and we'll be back. Welcome back to the Mindset Mentor. I'm Tania Kolar. Today we are talking about super conscious parenting. Wouldn't you love to have a little bit of help in terms of, how you can enjoy parenting in moments instead of having to, constantly be in a reactive mode, to maybe learning how to respond. Life is so much better when we can respond versus react. And that actually trickles down to not just parenting, but in every aspect of our lives. But today we're going to focus on super conscious parenting. My guest today is Dorothy Knight. She is a certified parent educator. And just before we took a break, we were talking about, what's the difference between super conscious parenting, Dorothy, versus being a helicopter parent, where there's, sometimes just the need to want to control everything.
Yeah, helicopter parents are really becoming a thing. I find they're more prevalent, more than ever. And I understand. I mean, there's so much happening in our world right now. The dynamics of what society feels is safe has completely shifted. So naturally, being so protective of our children, we always want to make sure that they're safe, that they're responded to, that they're nurtured, that they're taken care of. And that's really important as a parent. Absolutely. That is our main role as a parent for sure. Mm-hmm. But this also hinders our children when we do it excessively. So with helicopter parenting, these are the parents that just have this instinctive, innate urge to constantly respond. And truly what they're doing is they're interfering with their child's learning experience. Because when we do this, we're not letting our children figure things out for themselves. We're figuring things out for them, or we're responding for them, or we're giving the solutions where that part of their brain, which is so important developmentally, isn't being trained. It's not being exercised. And then they want us to pay their bills when they're older because they can't figure their way out through life. They can't navigate because we didn't let them take risks. We didn't let them learn to fail and learn from their mistakes and reassess every situation. So I see this a lot, for example, at playgrounds. So we have, let's say there's a mom. Actually, this is a true story, and we'll call her son Billy. So Billy is playing in the playground, and then I keep hearing like, Billy, stop. Billy, don't. Billy, wait. Billy, 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 Billy. Billy's on loop on soundtrack at the playground because the mom just can't relax. She can't let him be a kid. And like life is messy. We got to get dirty sometimes. And we're not letting our kids experience anything. Like being a kid is so sensory. It's so tactile. Like kids want to experience life to the fullest. They absolutely do. And we're robbing them of all these beautiful experiences, right? So super conscious parenting is you, again, are just very self-aware, and you're really actually connected with your inner child, because a lot of parenting is actually reparenting ourselves. We're reparenting our wounded inner child. And that's what those triggers are. So for example, if we feel like we're going to lose control and let's say yell at our kids, it's just because they triggered us to feel that we lost control. But we're the ones that control the outcome of every situation, right? When we're self-aware, we know how to respond. When we're not, we respond through reactions, through our own inner wounding, our own patterns that we haven't fully released or worked through.
Yeah, that's so interesting because, as you say, all kids are really great. They love to experience. They life to the fullest. They want to explore. They want to play, and they really, truly are living in the present. They are in the now. And, oftentimes you'll see parents or parents will say, stop doing that. And then continually, it's like the Billy story, right? Billy, Billy, Billy. And when you continually suppress that beautiful inner child, sometimes it gets covered up. and that light is dimmed. And then, those dreams and those desires and wants and that playfulness really start to, disappear. And to be able to reconnect with that, I think, is a beautiful thing. And there's always that opportunity, right, to reconnect with self, no matter what, and no matter the time. It's interesting how we can learn so much from our children, yet we are the great teachers, right, to the children, our children, and to the children around us. So let's talk a little bit about how you can be, a conscious parent when your child is, having a meltdown and you're exhausted and you're frustrated. What kind of tools or principles can we put into place that can kind of help us shift from, being triggered and reacting to actually responding and being calmer?
Yeah, so I like to tell my clients and just essentially everyone, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Yeah. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Mm-hmm. And all it takes is a moment to do it, a moment. And it's like anything else, the more you do it, the more you practice it, the more you master it. Because that's what energy mastery is. Energy mastery is self-mastery. And when we master ourselves, we master our life. We're in charge. We're in control. It's always the calmest in the eye of the storm, right? So we see the chaos as it's unfolding, but when we pause, we practice a pause, we check what's going on, we see the situation. Are we going to participate in this drama, or are we going to come back into our center? So this has to do a lot with how we hold energy, how we use energy, and now energetically too. I'm going to just bring this in. This is all like solar plexus stuff too. So any anger, any resentment, any guilt, any shame, like that's all rooted in fear. Mm-hmm. So when we react, it's because we're fearing something. There's an innate fear. Maybe it's subconscious, maybe it's unconscious, and you're just responding to it through that type of frequency. So I always like to tell parents, how can you shift this? How can you shift this energy or this situation before you want to react? So timeouts, parents need timeouts just as much as children do. I take mommy timeouts all the time, and they have changed my relationship with my children tremendously, because you need to leave sometimes. And it's just leaving the physical space, because energy is just energy. And the thing is, we need to transmute that energy. So what are you going to do with it? You can yell and feel like shit after, and you're going to have mom guilt. You're going to feel worse. Or you're going to do whatever you need to do to come back into a place where you feel in harmony, in alignment, composed, logical, rational, whatever it is, so that you can react in a very conscious way. So even for me, it's just leaving the room. Sometimes I go into the forest if I need to, and I just yell. Just go, I just yell at the trees.
Release some of that tension.
Mm-hmm. I've cleared it out of my throat chakra. It's not going to sit there anymore. I'm not suppressing anything. I'm not shoving it down. I just needed to release it. Or you can ground it, whatever you need to do. Like I tell my kids, stomp your feet. I stomp my feet. Why are you stomping your feet? I'm grounding the excess energy. And then you feel how the energy shifts. And then you can come back into your center. Am I good? Are we good? I am good. Okay, mommy's good. Mommy's going to come back into the room, back into the environment, back into the situation from a completely different energy now. That can take maybe 10 seconds, 5 seconds, 1 second, whatever it is, but it changes the whole situation and how you're going to respond to it.
Yeah, so that it takes literally just, it could be seconds, right? As opposed to when you actually do lose it and you're responding, and that lifetime of guilt, can carry with you, right? Even just from that moment can cause so much more anxiety and fear.
Yeah. And it's a thing for a lot of moms, a lot of parents, is that it's almost like self-sabotage. It's like a cycle that we go through, right? Where we really don't want to respond that way, but we don't do that. We don't practice that pause. We just quickly react. We're so trigger happy. It's like the driver that cuts you off. Like, do you need to flip him the bird? No, maybe not. Maybe you can give him a peace sign, right? Everything is in polarity, right? It's this or this. You can totally shift every situation, every single time, all of the time. And that's why kids, as we were talking about earlier, are such great teachers, because if you look at a child playing, they are 100% fully in the moment. In the moment. Kids know how to be present like nobody's business. They are not worrying about yesterday's situation. They're not worrying about tomorrow. They're so in it. They're always in the moment. And that's true mindfulness. So that is the same thing for us. Like if we just learn how to reclaim the present moment, that's where all of our power lies, is in this moment right now. So if we're dwelling in the past, we're anxious about the future, then we're giving our power away. And that actually siphons our energy. And then we feel depleted, more anxious, more irritable, more angry, more tired. So just coming back into the now, it's so simple, back into the space, back into your physical body. Like what's happening inside of you? Maybe you need a day off or something. Like it's just, if you're overwhelmed, overworked, over parenting, over everything, that's so far from alignment, right? We always want to come back into our space where we feel, we just feel present and responsive.
I think it's interesting that, reclaiming your power can actually be very empowering, right, for your children. So lovely, to hear that. I'd love to hear some examples, if you can share with us some of the, some of the situations that your clients have found themselves in, and how they were able to really focus on mindfulness and awareness to become more conscious in the moment and to be able to parent in a way that can leave everybody, feeling a little bit better versus, constantly in this upset mode versus, again, just because of the reacting in the moment.
Yeah, I find like we are the first generation of parents. Like parenting young children today is a whole different thing. It's so different than my parents parenting me and their parents parenting them. And in some ways it's scary because it's like a new frontier, right? We're very understanding of our children in a way, but we're almost too understanding. Like we're like, hey, I'm your buddy, I'm your friend. And I'm like, well, but children actually need some boundaries. They need structure. So if we're letting them get away with so much, that again is going to possibly be a hindrance for them as grown-ups. So one of the biggest things that parents are concerned about is their kids' love and, I dare say, addiction to technology. That's a big one. And, well, who's going to set the tone for that? Parents. The parents, not the child. No, not the child. That's where we're giving our power away. And it's not about like power struggles, but it's setting clear definitions. And this comes to as well, like your kids are looking to you. So what is your relationship with technology? What boundaries do you have on your device? Because if they see you scroll into Instagram all day, it's no wonder that they want, well, you're on the phone all day, mommy.
Yeah.
Right?
They model behavior perfectly well.
Absolutely. Your kids see everything, even when you don't think they're watching. They are so good at reading your energy. Like this is a whole different generation of children. They are like little adults, or like adults in little bodies. They're so opinionated. They are very expressive, and I love that they are. Because I wasn't like that. Like my daughter, I'm like, wow, independent woman, you're only 7. I'm like, I wasn't even like that at 27. It's amazing. But yeah, like going back to the technology, why are we using it? Like, why does it need to be in place? That's the first question I would ask anybody. Like, what is the purpose of the device? Because a lot of these children are just being over pacified with technology. So, pacifiers worked when they were 2, 1, they didn't have the developmental abilities to cope and self-regulate. But now we're just giving it like here, because I want to have dinner with my friends. So I'm going to give you the tablet at the restaurant. Like how many families have you seen where the kids like just mindlessly looking at a screen? They're not even there. And we're destroying that beautiful ability we're talking about here to be mindful. So we're taking them away from the present moment. And I'm getting goosebumps about this because this really pisses me off. But I just see it so frequent now. Like we're all together. There's a family together, but they're not together. They're
Yeah.
talking through screens, or they're talking elsewhere. They're not communicating.
They're not connected, and having that deep, fulfilling, connection. And, in the case of, let's say, a laptop or a phone or whatever it is, parents absolutely use it as a tool sometimes. It's like bribery. Well, here, play with this for a little while, just be quiet, right? So sort of some sanity for some quiet time for them, because they do need that time out, as you said earlier, right? But I think sometimes, goes the other direction where you're rewarding bad behavior. So if the child is acting out, you want them to stop, and you think the only way that you can get them to stop in that moment, right, is to give them something. Oh, let's buy you some ice cream. Oh, okay. Oh, you've been throwing a tantrum in the store because you wanted a toy? Well, let's just buy it because I don't want to hear you anymore, right? So these are things that go through parents' minds. So how can you make that shift in that moment to be able to not be reactive or not want to reward bad behavior for your own sanity? What else could you do instead?
Yeah, I mean, when we're doing that as well, you make a good point, is it's teaching conditional love.
Mm-hmm.
There's conditions, there's rewards for things. And that's not what the 5D is. Like, that's why this is what I do, is the 5D mom, because the 5D is the unconditional love. 5D, 5-dimensionally, is unconditional love. That's what we're here to embody, and that's what we're here to remember and restore. So, like, for example, instead of giving my child a tablet, what we've created, so my son is 5.5, my daughter's 7.5. This may not work with teenagers, but it might. Mm-hmm. I gave them each a piece of paper, and I'm like, I want you both to write a list of 10 things that you can do before you need that device. 10 things, because we buy them so many things, so many toys. Do they actually play with those toys? No, they're back to the devices, or they want your attention because they're so overstimulated. So many are so over-medicated and over-pacified. They don't know, again, how to self-regulate or how to be bored. What's wrong with being bored? What's wrong with using your imagination? Don't we remember our childhood? So they have what we call a busy board. So they have like 10 other things that they can do before they can say they're bored. And it works. It works. It's, Mommy, can I have the tablet now? No. What number are you on? Did you still do all of those? Because I was too fast, right? So in that age bracket, it works really well. Another thing too is just let them be bored. Let them learn how to be bored. That's why another thing I've done is I don't let them have the technology when we travel, unless it's like dire situation. But again, we just give it, because then they're quiet in the car and we can drive. And maybe sometimes you're just so tired. Moms, I hear you. I love you. I understand if you need those drives sometimes to yourself, like maybe that's the only time you get tough quiet. You are the parents. You are the parents. So do what works best for you. But like, even again, coming back to our childhood, what would you do on those long drives? You would sing songs. You would stare out the window. You would find other ways to keep yourself busy, to stimulate your imagination and fill the time, right? There's no need to rely on these pacifying shut up toys all the time. What else for teenagers? Honestly, too, a lot of teenagers are just desperately yearning to have a deeper connection with their parents. Especially now, they need it more than ever. So if we're not aware of what they're doing, of who they're seeing, who they're talking to, well, that can lead to a lot of problems down the road. So it's really important to restore the communication lines in the household.
And sometimes that means actively, setting it out that, hey, let's have a chat, let's communicate, make it clear that you want to communicate, right? Because, it's often difficult for a teenager to make that first initial step. So, you can guide them in that case and allow them to.
Definitely no devices during meal times. If you're actually coming together to sit at the table, look at each other and talk. Like, put them somewhere else.
All right, well, we're going to continue the conversation. We're going to take a time out because sometimes, everybody needs a time out. So we will be back here on Sauga 960 when we come back. Welcome back to the Mindset Mentor. I'm Tania Kolar, helping you cultivate a life you love. My guest today here on the Mindset Mentor Show is Dorothy Knight. Dorothy is a certified parent educator, and she's helping us out to really understand, how we can become more aware and mindful as a parent to allow our child to really thrive. One of the things, Dorothy, that happens is the mom burnout. Moms are exhausted. There's no space. There's no room. They're overwhelmed. And, I think that's why obviously a lot of the trigger points happen where you are really frustrated and tend to sort of, react versus respond. But how can we help mom not be so exhausted?
Yeah, moms are superheroes. We really are.
Mm-hmm.
And we are everything for everyone. We are a corporation in ourselves. And we have to remember that as moms, we're the CEO of our corporation. So we need to learn how to delegate.
Mm-hmm.
We need to learn time management, and we need to take those well-deserved vacations and breaks. So that's a really good way of looking at it, is like, I'm the CEO of my company. How am I treating my company? Because it all starts up at the top and then it trickles down, and you have this experience every single day where you barely crawl into bed and you're just so exhausted. Yeah. So most moms are 100% tired 100% of the time. And the best way to look at it is that you are like a corporation. You wear so many hats. You do so many jobs for everyone each and every single day to make sure that the whole operation is functioning and hopefully thriving. And
Yes.
We want to shift from survival to thrival, but I get thrival to thriving. I'll get to that in a moment. So as a CEO, the CEO is in charge of the company. So running your corporation, we have to employ some great energy management, time management, boundary management, and also taking those well-deserved vacations that you've rightfully earned. So this will totally shift your everyday experience as a mom, as a wife, as a partner, as a whatever other role that you play in service into society every single day. And most importantly, as a human being, because you're a human being at the end of the day, not a human doing. And the one thing I would really love for us to shift from is making this octopus lady, tentacle lady, multitasking mom cool.
Mm-hmm.
It is not. It is not cool. It is not. It's just not. It's not helping us because we can't do it all of the time, and we can't do it all perfectly. And there's such a high standard for moms to be perfect in every single way, all of the time. And it's not real. It's not authentic to you.
Yeah, and oftentimes it's a self standard that you put on there, and then you really beat yourself up and you criticize yourself, and then you feel like a bad parent because you just weren't able to do everything, 100%. And that's not the case. Nobody can do everything, to 100%. It's just not possible. And I think that parents really need to give themselves, a pat on the back and say, hey, well done, because it is a tough job, and you're not always going to get it right. It's not possible, right? So you have to be okay with not getting things right sometimes, and just being able to move forward and say, hey, it's okay. It's okay. And give myself a break.
Yeah, a lot of self-love, self-nurturing, self-compassion. But 3 little things that I do every single day that keep me consistent and keep me satisfied with my life is, number 1, time management. We all have the same amount of hours every single day, and it's up to you entirely how you want to organize that time. But you need to organize that time. Mm-hmm. So for me, like, I love staying up late, but it just doesn't serve me, and I feel worse in the mornings, and then it's rough for everybody. So I have learned to become an early bird. So I'll get up a little bit earlier than everybody else, even though I want to sleep in sometimes. But that is like sacred space where I get to do my work, have my morning coffee, do a little meditation, go for my morning walk. And that alone, if you take any of these 3 things, this one alone is just such a game changer, because it completely sets the tone for your day. So already by the time everyone else wakes up, I'm like, hey, I feel kind of accomplished. Like I already did some stuff. I can say I ticked off some check marks on my list. So I'm not going to bed at the end of the day. Oh, I didn't. I coulda, woulda, shoulda, but I didn't because I didn't have time. I made that time. And sometimes life happens. The kids will wake up earlier and you're like, no, my time. But you just got to go with the flow. It's not going to be perfect every single day. Stay in the flow. Stay in the flow. And then you can create that time and space somewhere else if you need to.
Yeah, and I think also, delegating, as you say, is great because, the kids can do their own homework. So you don't have to take on that responsibility too. And I know parents want their kids to succeed and get, all A's, and that's really great. But then you're actually, robbing them and preventing them of an opportunity to grow and to learn. And then they do become dependent on you, or they start to expect that, well, I don't need to do my homework because I know mom is going to help me, right?
Yeah, I wish I had that mom.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I had to do my own homework, or mostly I didn't even do it. So
yeah.
You do want guidance. Kids need security, safety, guidance, but there is that line of, too much, right? So that we allow our children to truly thrive. Everybody is different and everybody has their journey on this planet. And I think that being a parent, you do forget sometimes your own personal journey. So I love that, what you help really teach your clients is to reconnect with the self, right? To really, to get to that core authentic being and allow that person to run the day, not the person who is living in fear and constantly in a reactive state, because that's going to continually pile up. And no wonder, you're going to feel frazzled and exhausted, or, sometimes it's competition, right? It's like, I'm going to compete with all the other parents because I've got to be better. I'm going to make the biggest batch of cookies and the yummiest tasting cookies, right? Because there's just that. Yeah, exactly. It's like, I gotta be that super mom, right? But it's okay to be a super mom. I think being authentic really is the ultimate super mom.
Yes, you took the words right out of my mouth. A super mom is not perfect. She's authentic. She's authentic and she honors herself in every moment, in the present moment. She shows up for herself first and foremost, because you cannot pour from an empty cup. You gotta fill up that cup for yourself each and every single day, because then there's nothing left. There's nothing left. And then you feel depleted, resentful, and all of those emotions that we're talking about through and through. And at the end of the day, depleted and depleted and depleted. And you're not here to live that kind of life. You're not. You're a goddess, girl. You're a goddess. You have so much potential within you. We are vessels of creation, not just for creating children, for creating life. We are here to birth businesses, collaborations, partnerships, projects, communities, whatever it is, we absolutely have it within us. And if anything, being a mom proves that to us, that we can do anything.
Yes, and you can.
We have so much energy to do it. We actually have so much energy.
And you can have it all. Awaken the goddess within. And unfortunately, we're out of time. So I want to say thank you so much, Dorothy, for helping us to understand more, conscious parenting, what that looks like, and how we can become a super conscious parent and make that shift. And that's a wrap for today's show, everyone. So make sure that you continue to work out your mindset and activate the inner goddess. She's in there. It's within. So enjoy and have a beautiful, authentic day. We'll see you next Tuesday at 1 p.m.